let's go draw the columns for one of the levels in this project. As in, we would be creating the types and then placing the columns, then check their elevations, and overall just start and finish the columns for one level. Also, by the end of the video, I'm going to show you the finished result. So we're just going to go back to that plan where we've checked the walls cuttings. We could also use that plan to check the columns typings. As you can see over here, the columns have been typed. And if we take a look at all of these sheets over here, which there are so many of them, we can see that they're all sections of each one of these columns. Now you see, for example, this C1 starts from the foundation point and goes up to, for example, this one is elevation 10. So by just taking a look at this plan over here, you can understand how long your columns need to be. Now, in the first step, it is best if we start by drawing the columns and then try to place them. You see, because we are trying to place the columns level by level, we could also use this plan as a guide to understand each column covers which levels and whether their sizes increase or decrease, how the rebars need to be placed, etc. So you see, I've already imported this plan into Revit, so we could use it to check the columns. But as for the sizes or dimensions of the columns, we could very easily check them out in here. So as you can see, we already have the sizes and dimensions for each column around in this plan. But again, I'm not going to fill this entire video by showing you how I draw every single column, because it's just going to be a repetitive process. But still, we are going to draw some of them together, and then I'm going to finish placing the columns here and show you the final result. So first I'm going to put this one on this side, then I'm going to also minimize the Revit window and place it on the left. And I'm going to also close the project browser palette, and now we can begin creating the types for our columns. So first I'm going to go to the Structure tab, select Column, and enable the command. So first I'm going to check to see if there is any concrete type column. For example, here we do have them, but if you didn't, you're just going to have to load them into your Revit. You'd have to load a simple concrete column and then use that to create new types. So now let's go see what the dimensions for the C1 is. It is 60 by 60. So I'm going to go over here, and then I'm going to name this one Kimya /C1 /60 by 60. You could also add centimeter, then click OK. Now let's also insert the dimensions, and then click OK. Now we've got one of our columns, and then next we have the column 2, dimensions of which are 70 by 70. Let's have them all in one view. This one's 70 by 70, so I'm going to duplicate this type, then rename it to dimension 70 by 70. And also don't forget that this one's going to be C2. So you'll just have to continue this way to create all of the types you need for your columns, and then you can get to placing them. So next we have column 3, which is 80 by 80. So once again, we're going to duplicate the recent type, and we're going to make it 80 by 80, and also we're going to make it C3, then click OK. Don't forget to also edit the dimensions, 80 and 80. So that's all I'm going to create for this video, but I am going to finish all of the types, and then we will begin placing the columns. Alright, so I've just created all of the types we need for the columns, and now if I go over here to the Structure tab, then we can take a look in the Properties drop-down where we can see all of the types that I've just created. Now, something that you always need to pay attention to is that when you are creating your column types, you should also take a quick look at their sections. So I'm going to show you one of them, for example, like this one. This column is type C8, and as you can see here, it says that this type's dimensions are 80 by 80, and as we go further up, our column becomes smaller. From this elevation onwards, the size changes to 70 by 70. So remember, when creating a type for a column like this C8, you would need to create one 80 by 80 and another one 70 by 70. So basically, you would just have to create the types for your columns based on the size change. So don't forget to take a look at these sections as well For example, like this column right here, the size changes and becomes 70 by 70, whereas it started with 80 by 80. So you should always pay attention to these size changes when creating column types, and create all types accurately. So if you agree, we're going to begin by creating all of the structural elements for the second basement. As in, I'm just going to go into this level, then place all the beams, columns, slabs, and everything else for the second basement level, and just basically model every single structural element for it. Then I won't bother you with modeling the elements for all the other levels, but I am going to show you the final result, and for now we're going to model just one of them. Okay, so now to give some shape to the project, I'm going to be drawing two levels. Considering that the base for all of the columns are the same, I'm going to start by drawing one of them, and then I'm going to copy it into the next level. So I'm going to start drawing the columns from the third basement, and then I'm going to copy those columns into the second basement. Also, considering that there aren't any changes of size, and that they also look pretty much the same, there won't be any problem with that. So just to give some shape to the project, I'm going to draw two levels. Now that we've decided to begin the columns from the third basement, instead of using this plan over here, which is for the second basement, it is best if we use this plan instead, which also shows all of the column types. So I'm going to go over here and back to Revit, where once again we're going to be working on this level. Now the process is going to be very much easier. You're just going to have to select your type and then place your columns. So let's just begin from the bottom here. Now I'm going to open this drop down and select the type C1. I'm going to also set this one on height, and as for the base level, we're going to make them start from level -10.6. And now let's go over here to place the columns. You see, if we go take a look in the column family, we will see that its reference plane is at the center, and so basically where our cursor mouse is going to be the center of the column. So it's just going to be here. Now to have a better view, you could also temporarily hide your foundation so you can see well what you're drawing. So there goes C1, and now let's continue the same way to draw the rest of the columns. This one's going to be C2, only I've placed it at the wrong position, and it's going to have to go here. This one is C2, also don't forget to look at the height. And now I'm going to change the type. Place C3. Let's change the type again. This one is C4. And so on and so forth. Now I'm just going to continue modeling all the columns for this level. So if you want to get to the next step of the process, you could just skip ahead. Okay, so I'm going to place this one, which also has a differing size. So I'm just going to go take a look and double check to make sure its size isn't wrong. And as you can see, I've created it with 80, just like the previous ones. So I'll just change it to 70, and then I'm going to continue. Alright, so this one's center it's not going to be here, so let's try this one, and there we go. Okay, so we've placed C6. Next, we're going to go to C7. There goes C7. Then there's C8. And you can also place your columns at the cross sections of your grids. Now this C8 column has two sizes, so we're going to need to change it to 80. Then we have C9, which is going to be placed at this point. And also the C9 column probably has two sizes, or maybe we just forgot to correct its size. So let me just go back here and double check the C9 dimensions. And also these things might happen a lot when there are so many columns in one project. Now the C9 column was 80 by 90, whereas I've made C9 90 by 90. So I'm going to rename its type, then make this one 80, and change this one to 80 as well. Alright, now I'm going to press the space bar, and there we go. So like I just said, you could also place your columns at the cross sections of your grids, but since some of the cross sections don't have any columns on them, I didn't go that way. Alright, next we have C10, which goes here, And to prevent that from happening, I'm going to first press the spacebar, then a second time, and after we place it, we're going to align these two lines together. Now let's continue. Next we have C11, which goes over here, and then we have C12. Now this one center, I feel like it's going to be here. Alright, once again here we have C7, so we're going to have to change to the C7 type. Then the next one is C13, then C14. And also remember that it's only hard for a couple of the levels, because for the later levels you could just copy all these columns, and that would be totally fine. Now once again I'm going to have to select this one and press the spacebar, and then continue. So there goes C16. Next we have C17. And here's a reminder that your types need to be all correct, so that when it comes to placing the columns, you would only have to change the types as you go. There are some people who choose to create the types as they are placing each column, and you could also do that. There's not really much of a difference. But I just prefer to create the types first, and then start with placing the columns. Alright, so I've just placed all the columns up to here, and now only C58 and C59 are remaining, for which I haven't created the types yet. So I'm just going to double check their sections. And you see I just missed those two and forgot to create their types. So let's go create them together. One is 70 by 70 and the other is 60 by 70. So I'm going to go over here and then select this 70 by 70 type, and then duplicate it, then rename the duplicated one to C58. Then I'm going to duplicate this one as well, and this one's going to be C59 with dimension 60 by 70. Okay, so let's place the C59 column, then hit the spacebar to rotate it, and I'm going to also edit it to swap the dimensions. Now let's hit the spacebar again, so that we would place all the other C58s correctly without having to rotate them. Here we have C59, and we have another column over here which is C58. So we're going to place this one as well, and we'll only need to align it, and we are done. So by far I have placed every single column in this level. Let's also go take a look at them in the 3D view. And this is what they look like. Alright, so next I'm going to import the second basement's plan into here, and then I'm going to copy the columns in this level and paste them into the second basement level, and then I'm going to also double check to make sure everything looks fine. Now I've already created the second basement's CAD plan into a different file, so I'll just go to this view and then import the CAD plan in here. I'm going to also double check the settings real quick, and they all look okay, and import the CAD plan in the view. Now I'm going to go over to the view for the foundation level. I'm going to first drag over the entire area to select everything, but then have a filter for only the columns to be selected. Then I'm going to copy, and then go over to that view and paste. So now we've got the columns here as well. I'm going to also double check their properties. They start from 10.6, then go to 7.10. I'm going to change the top offset to 0. Then double check again in the 3D view. And there we go. Now once again, I'm going to skim them real quick to make sure the column sizes are all correct. I'll set the draw layer to foreground and then take a look at all of the columns to make sure that their sizes are relevant. Also, based on what we've observed in the sections, there aren't supposed to be any changes of size for these columns in this level, and they also seem fine to me. So basically this is how we can place our columns. First, we could create all of the types, or you could just create each type as you draw each column. But honestly, I recommend that you create all of the types that you have in the project first, so that later when you get to drawing the columns, you'll just have to alter between types and place your columns one by one. So these are the columns that we have drawn for 2 levels in this video. And now I'm going to show you the final result of all of the columns for all levels.